article that he saw that basically criticized the administration's ability to handle the technical aspects of denuclearizing North Korea. He did not like that article one bit and came out and said, you know what, I am going to contest this right off the bat.
He said, look, this is the very first thing that I want to say is I want to address this report in the New York Times that, as you mentioned, the U.S. lacks technical and logistical expertise to dismantle North Korea. One of the other things he mentioned off the top is this is a mission of peace. And then in wrapping up, he said, you know, look, what happens in this meeting is going to really set the framework for this relationship going forward.
That's right. And the V, the verify, the biggest thing he said, we're not going to be duped again, according to Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. We've been duped before. We've given up the sanctions. We've dumped the money back into the country, and then they don't do anything. He says that will not happen again. So the president, the administration, the Secretary of State, sticking to the guns that they have been talking about over the last weeks and months on how this is going to go. They have not backed down on what they say is going to be complete and verifiable denuclearization of North Korea, and it has to happen or else nothing happens.
He said they've heard the talks before. Now this time they need to verify and they need to make sure that this is going to happen. Make sure you stay with Fox News on air and online for everything you need to know about the Singapore summit.
A special edition of Fox and Friends starts right now.
With the Fox News alert, the countdown to the historic North Korea summit is on.
In case you're just watching it or just waking up, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, that was live. He has just wrapped up a briefing from Singapore moments ago.
And Rich Edson is live where Secretary Mike Pompeo just spoke. What is the latest there, Rich?
Well, the Secretary of State updating us on exactly what the president and the secretary have been doing today. More conversations between American and North Korean officials to try to work through some of these differences. The Secretary of State says he expects tomorrow to really be a first step, that conversations are going to have to continue to reach this ultimate goal of getting rid of nuclear weapons in North Korea on the Korean Peninsula. He also says that the United States is prepared to provide security assurances. One of the big things for North Korea here is they want to make sure that if they give up their nuclear weapons, they say, that they're not going to be left with a robust or aggressive U.S. presence there that they feel threatens their security or their regime. So the Secretary of State says the U.S. is willing to provide those assurances, but refused to get into specifics surrounding that. The Secretary also previewed tomorrow's conversation, the historic one between the president and Kim Jong-un.
I'm very optimistic that we will have a successful outcome from tomorrow's meeting between these two leaders. It's the case. In each of those two countries, there are only two people that can make decisions of this magnitude, and those two people are going to be sitting in a room together tomorrow.
They are both in this city in less than 24 hours, the first time an American president will meet with a leader from North Korea. The highest-ranking sitting American official to meet with the North Korean leaders as Secretary of State happened with Madeleine Albright in 2000 and twice with Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, though once when he is CIA director. It's a historic moment happening tomorrow here from Singapore. Back to you guys.
Wow, thanks, Rich. Appreciate it. And of course, the beauty of the Singapore summit is breaking news happens for us right in the morning as it happens, as we'll be on earlier tomorrow.
Because they're 12 hours ahead of us.
Yeah, as the presidents meet. But interesting, very direct press conference from our Secretary of State.
Yeah, it was terrific because Mike Pompeo, who is, you know, they've been trying over the last couple of days to tamp down expectations, he sounded very optimistic. And there he is taking the stage just about 25 minutes ago. He said that things are moving very quickly and faster, and the summit may actually end faster than anybody actually thought. It's interesting. There are two out times. We know it's going to start tomorrow, our time, Eastern time. However, apparently, Mr. Kim will leave 5 hours after it starts. That's what he's telling people. And the president is scheduled to leave on Wednesday morning.
Well, we're learning who's going to be in the room. It's going to be Mike Pompeo, the man you see there, Secretary of State, John Kelly, the White House Chief of Staff, and John Bolton, the National Security Advisor. If you think about how far we've come, it's pretty incredible. You know, you remember Bill Clinton? He gave billions in energy aid to Kim's father. He said that North Korea was never going to get nukes. He said it was a good deal for the American people. Exactly. This president has done so much without even a bribe. He got those hostages back. North Korea could actually denuke. And when they played games, we pull out, and within hours, they're begging us to come back to the table. They dismantled the nuclear testing site. We showed you those pictures. You saw video of Kim crossing the DMZ line and meeting with the South Korean leader. And then they stopped firing missiles over Japan, stopped threatening Guam, stopped threatening America, purged 3 of his dads. His dad had these high-ranking officials that were telling him what to do.
Yeah.
He purged 3 of them, got rid of them. I guess they weren't for this summit.
They were the hardliners. So, Ainsley, you have summarized perfectly where we are right now. And you heard Mike Pompeo a moment ago. He was very reluctant to get ahead of the president. It is clear that the president has 2 strategies. He's going to try to impress, but at the same time intimidate, which kind of sounds like what Lindsey Graham was talking about yesterday.
I think what he's going to convey to North Korea is he wants a peaceful resolution to the nuclear threat as well as to end the Korean War. But the goal is to eliminate their nuclear missile program, not contain it, do it in a win-win fashion. There's 3 outcomes here. Peace, where we have a win-win solution. Military force, where we devastate the North Korean regime and stop their program by force, or to capitulate like we've done in the past, and Donald Trump is not going to capitulate. So there's really only 2 options, peace or war.
So that's Lindsey Graham amped it up. So what the Democrats did yesterday, Senator Schumer led the way. They said, hey, Mr. President, these are the things that have to happen for this summit to work. They got to denuclearize. Everything's got to be out of there. We're going to have weapons inspectors on the ground. Now, many would think on first blush, wow, what are the Democrats doing? True. Why didn't they do this when it came to the Iranian deal and their president? To put all that aside, there's a belief that that letter will help the president immeasurably. He'll be able to say, hey, Kim Jong-un, I want to show you how united we are back at home. The Democrats are absolutely right. The only thing Senator Lindsey Graham's point was, which I was so glad we put out there, is they only understand that there is a military option. Right. And let the AUMF be signed and out there, Democrats, to show not only are you backing with words, you're backing with potential action, because one way or another, this will be solved. And I also think it's important to bring out that even though they blew up that site, not many people think they blew up the site. They blew up a site that was destroyed, and they wouldn't let the Western guys walk through there, even with proper equipment.
It was convenient. It was a convenient coincidence for them. So it does sound as if, and one of the things that Mike Pompeo said a moment ago, it sounds like one of the things the president is going to sit across the table from Mr. Kim with, and he's going to say, the North Korea would be so much wealthier. Your people will not be going to bed starving every night if you allow us to become partners with you. And he has apparently fancied the idea of presenting, hey, you know, you love American culture. Wouldn't it be great to have a McDonald's in North Korea? American businesses are going to flock there. He likes the idea of engaging the modern amenities. But of course, it is all predicated on tomorrow. And Mike Pompeo made it very clear. Something is going to be signed. We don't know what it is, but it absolutely has to start the process. Pulling the plug on their nuclear.
And you wonder how he did this. It's the art of the deal. Remember, he was meeting with the Chinese president, and they were supposed to meet for 30 minutes. They ended up meeting for 4 hours. The president leans over to him and says, I've just retaliated against Syria, who used chemical weapons on their own people. They had this newly formed relationship. And as you know, China and North Korea have a relationship together. So the Chinese president puts pressure on Kim Jong-un to say, hey, you need to have the summit. You need to meet with the president. He actually canceled the coal delivery from North Korea and bought coal from the United States just to prove to him, I'm serious about this relationship I have with Donald Trump now.
I think it's key also that they sent the Chinese plane that was the same size as Air Force One there. That China says, don't forget we're a presence. I also think it's good that the president says, when I get a deal, I'm going to look to pass it through Congress so it doesn't happen like the Iranian deal. It isn't just a document that doesn't mean anything except to John Kerry. Now, also, it's going to be great to know that the president's going to meet with just interpreters one-on-one with Kim Jong-un to as long as 2 hours. Then they're going to factor in the Secretary of State. He's going to be there. John Kelly will be there, along with Kim Jong-un and his counterparts. Even if they say, come and take my nukes, the experts say, who, by the way, will be in attendance. The Secretary of State made that clear. The New York Times story was flat out wrong yesterday. They said they have no experts. It'll take about 10 years to get everything out. And it's not understood exactly what they have. Some experts say 13 nuclear sites. Others say 35 nuclear sites. How do you possibly reconcile the two unless you agree to let Americans and UN inspectors on the ground? Will they allow that?
They're going to have to. The president, before Singapore, as you know, was in Canada for the G7 summit. And as soon as he got on the plane, Justin Trudeau, the Prime Minister of Canada, went up to the podium and he said, "We are upset with the new tariffs on aluminum and steel, and therefore we will retaliate." Listen.
It's kind of insulting. And I highlighted that it was not helping in our renegotiation of NAFTA. It would be with absolute certainty and firmness that we move forward with retaliatory measures on July 1st, applying equivalent tariffs to the ones that the Americans have unjustly applied to us. It is not something we relish doing, but it is something that we absolutely will do, because Canadians were polite, we're reasonable, but we also will not be pushed around.
And with that soundbite,
right there.
the president hit the roof, and so did Peter Navarro and Larry Kudlow here at home. They said that is not the tone you had behind closed doors, Justin Trudeau. We told you the problem. You told us the problem. We had signed a communique. I was set to tell my guys to sign it now that I had to rush off. Now everything changed.
Well, because, and this is Donald Trump. Donald Trump, on the way to negotiation, didn't want to be called out for being a bad negotiator. That is breaking the code, and that's why the administration did everything they could yesterday to blow up the Prime Minister of Canada. Watch.
There's a special place in hell for any foreign leader that engages in bad faith diplomacy with President Donald J. Trump and then tries to stab him in the back on the way out the door. And that's what bad faith Justin Trudeau did with that stunt press conference. That's what weak, dishonest Justin Trudeau did. And that comes right from Air Force One. And I'll tell you this, to my friends in Canada, that was one of the worst political miscalculations of a Canadian leader in modern Canadian history.
We get on the plane, and then this guy Trudeau starts blasting us.
So what's key here?
Kim must not see American weakness. How many times has President Trump said, "If you hit me, I'm going to hit you back"? Trudeau made an error. He should take it back. He should pull back on his statements and wish President Trump well in the Korean negotiations. These other members did. He went rogue.
Well, of course, Justin Trudeau is mad because he doesn't want to have to pay more money. But the president is accurate in all of this because he says we have America's best interest in mind. I only care about America. It's not fair that we're paying 22% of NATO's budget, more than any other nation. And he says these are the same countries. We're paying the most of the budget. These are the same countries that are ripping us off when it comes to trade. It's not fair.
Right, especially when it comes to the dairy farmers. But they have a pushback on America. You would think they say we have our issues. America has their issues. We'll work it out. He had a different tone. I will say this. I actually think it's going to work to the president's advantage because Kim Jong-un, who can't figure this president out anyway, now says, wait a second, they just left the G7 and this president had no problem doing something no other president did before, calling out allies for not paying their fair share. I think it goes to the unpredictability of the president.
The president did the same thing with the G7 that he did with North Korea a couple of weeks ago. He pulled out. So that's a symbol. That's the strategy going in. Hey, Mr. Kim, this president could do anything. We're going to keep you posted, Sebastian Gorka, on that in a minute. But right now, we got a Fox News alert with Jillian.
That's right. Good Monday morning to you at home as well. Let's get you caught up on this news that we're following. An American pilot is in serious condition after ejecting to safety moments before a jet crash. The F-15 plunging into the sea during a training mission off the coast of Okinawa, Japan. The pilot, the only person on the plane, was rescued. The incident is under investigation. This marks the 6th non-combat crash for the Air Force already this year. That's compared to 7 in total last year. The Justice Department has until tomorrow to turn over documents related to the Russia probe. House Intelligence Committee Chair Devin Nunes sending a letter to Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein demanding the records regarding an alleged FBI informant. House conservatives have repeatedly asked for the documents and questioned the DOJ's conduct in the investigation. Nunes says withholding from Congress is obstruction in the investigation. The First Lady stepping into the spotlight to pay tribute to Abraham Lincoln's legacy. Melania Trump serving as the honorary chair of the gala at Ford's Theater in Washington, D.C. She made remarks and congratulated the recipients of the Lincoln Medal. In a statement, the First Lady says it, quote, reminds all of us about the power the arts have in cultivating the American voice. Let's look at your headlines. I'll send it back to you.
What a busy day.
Yes, it is.
Thank you very much.
Thanks,
All right, 13 minutes after the hour, moments ago, Secretary Pompeo, literally moments ago, laying out what we can all expect from the high-stakes summit now taking place. Dr. Sebastian Gorka predicts two big things from this meeting. He joins us live from Singapore. Next.
This is truly a mission of peace. The talks continue this afternoon, even as we sit here now. They're in fact moving quite rapidly, and we anticipate they will come to their logical conclusion even more quickly than we had anticipated.
That was 30 minutes ago. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo live from Singapore sharing an update ahead of the historic summit. Our next guest predicts we can expect two crucial results. Fox News national security strategist and former deputy assistant to President Trump, Dr. Sebastian Gorka, live in Singapore, joins us right now. So what are those two goals? What are we going to see, Sebastian?
I expect two large baskets of results coming out of the meetings here, Steve. Number one is going to be something very large and symbolic that relates to the Korean War and how we can just tie a bow on that conflict and hopefully shut it down. And then secondly, it's the far more tactical, operational level of technical issues to do with denuclearization, specifically the weapons program that North Korea currently has and the ballistic missile technology. So those are the two target sets we're going to be expecting today.
Well, when Mike Pompeo was on television live from Singapore, Sebastian, about a half an hour ago, he sounded very optimistic. In fact, he said, don't be surprised if the summit ends faster than people thought because things are moving quickly. What does that mean?
Well, I think it means that the world, or at least America's interlocutors, are understanding the speed of Trump. Look at Mike's behavior as Secretary of State. It's stunning. Remember the day he was confirmed by the Senate? Within minutes of getting confirmed, he'd already been sworn in by Justice Alito. Within minutes of getting sworn in by Supreme Court Justice Alito, he was on a plane to the Middle East and to Brussels. So that's why things are going so quickly and so smoothly, because of the team we have. And at the end of the day, everybody understands the stakes. We have the potential now, Steve, to go from fire and fury with regards to this issue to potentially peace and prosperity. So, from fire and fury to peace and prosperity couldn't be bigger stakes than that.
Absolutely. And the president and the Secretary of State have made it very clear this will be the first step. Meanwhile, let's take a step backward, Sebastian. When the president left Canada on Saturday, it sounded like he was going to sign on to that communique regarding what had happened at the G7 summit. But then Justin Trudeau got out on television and shot off his mouth, and the president was steamed because it made him look weak, he felt. What did you think of the prime minister?
Very disappointed. Really childish and unprofessional behavior. If you want to treat your friends like friends, that's exactly what you do. You don't make arrangements face to face, and then as soon as the individuals left the building, talk behind their back. That's not what true friends do, and I think Peter Navarro's commentary on Fox was spot on. The Canadians will regret this action by their prime minister. It's just unseemly. It's not how you treat your fellow allies.
All right, Sebastian Gorka joining us live from Singapore. You're going to have a busy day because I know you're going to be on the Sean Hannity program live from Singapore tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Sebastian, thank you very much for getting up so early with us. You bet. Actually, it's 6:20 in the evening there, 6:20 in the morning here. Meanwhile, President Trump says he's putting America first by not signing the G7 statement, but many people say he's abandoning our allies.
Here's some quick headlines for you. Accused D.C. leaker James Wolfe will be booked at FBI headquarters today. The former Senate Intelligence Committee staffer is accused of lying to FBI agents about his contacts with reporters. He will make his first federal court appearance tomorrow. And the Obama-era net neutrality rules end today. They were put in place to stop service providers from slowing down or blocking sites, giving everyone equal internet access. The repeal could mean that you might eventually end up paying more for faster internet or streaming services like Netflix or Hulu. The Trump administration calls net neutrality rules over-regulation.
Meanwhile, fighting for fair trade, President Trump refused to sign that G7 communique statement this weekend, defending tariffs against policies hurting the United States. The president says he's putting America first, but tell that to his critics, and there are plenty of them on the left.
The former CIA director John Brennan tweeting this: "Your wrong-headed protectionist policies and antics are damaging our global standing as well as our national interests. Your worldview does not represent American ideals. To allies and friends, be patient, Mr. Trump is a temporary aberration. The America that you once knew will return."
Nancy Pelosi adding this week started with @RealDonaldTrump, boosting a Chinese company identified as a national security threat to the U.S. It ended with him standing up for Russia and alienating our allies at the G7 mega.
All right, so what are they getting wrong? Dan Bongino is a Secret Service agent. His podcast is #1, The Dan Bongino Show. He joins us now to weigh in. So now you have these Obamaites going out of their way to attack our current president. And by the way, you could factor John McCain into that, too. So what do you say to that?
Well, Brian, I think there's two different motivations at play here. Number one, Brennan's disgraced himself. He's disgraced the intelligence community. He's engaged in a temper tantrum now that's almost 2 years long because he threw the entire weaponized intelligence community at Donald Trump, almost internationally in many respects, and he still lost, and at every turn he's being humiliated. So Brennan, I think it's just he's a child, and it's personal. As you can tell, I don't like John Brennan because I don't like what he did to the noble men and women of our intelligence community by doing what he did. But on the Pelosi front, these are globalists, Nancy Pelosi and them, and there's a reason they're globalists. And guys, this is important. You know, when you believe in local control, subsidiarity, like conservatives and libertarians do, you know, we love that because if you have bad government where I live in Martin County, you can just move to the next county. Right. When you're a globalist like Nancy Pelosi and you're taking people's money and their health care, there's nowhere to escape. Well, so they're upset that they're putting America first.
The big question is, will the president get concessions? Will what he's doing, will it work? How is Canada going to respond?
Well, I was really glad to hear him make a commitment openly in front of the press that he is committed to free trade. And the way he'd like to see it is no subsidies and no tariffs at all. He was clear as day on that point. Right. And I have to tell you, I really sat there and I stood up and gave him a big round of applause in my house. We've been treated unfairly by the Canadians in many respects. And this is not a knock on the Canadians. I love Canada. I've been there a couple times. But a 300% tariff or close to it on their dairy products, that's not really fair to us either. And if this is a negotiating ploy by Donald Trump to get to tariff-free dairy trade and other trade with Canada and Mexico and other countries, then I think it's a good move.
Yeah, and Dan, nobody should be surprised. This is what Donald Trump ran on. He said, when I get in the room with him, I'm going to say, hey, it stops now. And so he gets in the room with him, he said, stop now, and people's hair starts on fire.
That's a great point, though, Steve. Yeah. I'm a free trader, always have been, but this is not a mystery to anybody who followed the campaign.
Exactly. Meanwhile, let's follow the president. He and Mr. Kim are sitting within a mile of each other in a highly fortified area of Singapore. You used to work for the Secret Service. You protected the president. You know all about these security envelopes. You know, the most particular one right now is Mr. Kim and his armored Mercedes, where he is followed by about a dozen guys in black suits and blue and white ties. What do you make of that?
Yeah, the whole running next to the limo, you have to understand, guys, that's all security theater, okay? The only time the Secret Service, we do that is during the inauguration. It's really just ceremonial. Why you would do that, I don't know. It doesn't have a real security purpose.
It's like they didn't book a big enough car, and they're trying to get in. And the other thing is, it's like, can they slow down a little? I mean, what are these guys on the Olympic team? If not, just put them in Nike sweatsuits.
You know, Brian, I was working out in the gym the other day, and I kid you not, a guy asked me if you were as funny in real life as you were on TV. That's a great point. Like, get in the car. What are you doing next to the limo? It's all theater. But on a serious note, the big problem with these things is typically deconfliction. When you're dealing with relatively inexperienced security like the North Koreans are traveling, deconfliction's a big deal. You don't want a blue-on-blue situation.
What about how? And it's very serious. There's a lot at stake here. Can we expect them trying to spy on Americans, including our president?
Well, there's always a component of spying on these kinds of things, but the Secret Service is pretty savvy to it. You know, we have people with us and with the military as well that are usually good with it. But I remember doing the signing of the START Treaty in Prague with the Russians. And again, deconfliction is a big deal. The Russians are very serious, but they're experienced. The North Korean security really isn't, at least on foreign soil. They don't leave much.
Dan, they were running up to tourists and taking their camera and making them delete photos. How dare you take a picture of our chairman? Really? We can't take pictures? What country are they in?
Brian, that's Bush League. That's total like amateur hour, grapefruit league. You just don't do that stuff, and that's a mark of complete inexperience. That may work in a tyrannical regime, but it's not going to work anywhere else.
Well, they're from a tyrannical regime, so that makes sense.
It's the same way, but she's a little different.
Dan, real quickly, what did you tell the guy at the gym? Is he as funny in real life?
I said you'd never believe it. I said he's the real deal. When you get him on the studio on set, he's hysterical. So,
it's true.
I think it's the Long Island thing.
I guess so.
Thanks, Dan.
All right, thanks, Dan. 30 minutes before the top of the hour.
All right, we are just hours away from this high-stakes summit between President Trump and Kim Jong-un. It's 9 p.m. our time, Eastern time. So how did we get here? We're going to look back at the key moments leading up to tonight's big meeting.
Plus, Nancy Pelosi wants to lead Democrats to victory in November, but a new poll shows her own party is abandoning her and her ship.
But first, happy birthday to our friend who works across the street. Dr. Oz has 58 candles on his German chocolate cake.
Happy birthday.
We are just hours away from that high-stakes summit between President Trump and Kim Jong-un of North Korea.
Really, I have not been following it.
How do we get this?
Maybe the biggest news story of years.
Here's a look back at the key moments leading up to tonight's big meeting through us.
One of the papers called the other day, and they said, would you speak to the leader of North Korea? I said, absolutely. Why not?
North Korea launched its first ballistic missile since President Trump took office.
After 17 months, U.S. citizen Otto Warmbier was finally released from North Korea.
Otto Warmbier has just passed away. The era of strategic patience with the North Korean regime has failed. North Korea best not make any more threats to the United States. They will be met with fire and fury like the world has never seen.
North Korea firing another missile over the country of Japan,
proving Guam is within striking distance.
Rocket Man is on a suicide mission for himself.
It makes sense for North Korea to come to the table and to make a deal.
Today, the United States is designating North Korea as a state sponsor of terrorism.
Yesterday, North Korea talked to South Korea and said, hey, you know what? We'd like to talk to you about coming to the Winter Olympics.
I just spoke to President Moon. He's very thankful for what we've done. They're having talks.
Kim Jong-un said he is committed to denuclearization. He expressed his eagerness to meet President Trump.
Secretary of State right now, Mike Pompeo, is in North Korea.
3 Americans detained in North Korea will be coming home.
June 12th, are you going to be in Singapore?
We'll see what happens.
Yesterday, the president called Kim's bluff.
I've decided to terminate the planned summit.
Kim Jong-un and South Korea's president meeting overnight. President Trump teases that his face-to-face meeting could still happen.
In just a few minutes, I'll be leaving for Singapore. It's a great opportunity for peace.
Kim Jong-un got in here a little earlier today. One of the first things that he did was he directly went to meet with the Singaporean Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong.
There is the President of the United States stepping foot in Singapore as we await this historic summit. What we are seeing right now, this is history.
Remember, at the very beginning, no one thought this was even possible.
See, now, if you watch the program, you figure out what's going on in the world. We put it all together, our great producers did, so you understand how we got to where we are now over the last year and a half.
How far we've come so quickly. And for anyone who thinks it's a bad thing, look at all of the gains that we're getting from this, including bringing home those 3 American hostages.
Yeah, and there's no rockets really going over Guam or over Japan, and there hasn't been since January. But keep in mind, since November, keep in mind this, is that Mike Pompeo stated every moment he's trying to brush back people that keep saying that this is rushed, we're not ready, where there's too much empty space in this, there's not enough script. Mike Pompeo just told you an hour and 5 minutes ago there's a lot of preparation. We know exactly what's going on. We have our science people with us, and we are ready to go. We don't need any more time.
The proof is in the pudding. What's going to happen? We'll know soon.
Right.
Yep, 9 p.m. our time.
Right. I have not had pudding in a very long time. Jillian, have you?
I actually really don't like pudding.
No, you're anti-pudding.
You don't like the consistency or the taste?
Everything.
Yeah, for a while it was the only thing kids would bring to school for a snack.
So hold on. Steve said proof is in the pudding, and Brian does the transition based on that, and we're talking about pudding.
Yes, we are.
You, Jillian, but you have a serious story.
I do have a serious story, so let's go ahead and get to that because at least one person is dead after a home explodes. Now the search is on to figure out why.
My whole window just blew. It just exploded. I looked and I started screaming, and then I got my keys and I ran out the door.
The home in Cleveland, Ohio, completely leveled with wood and debris scattered everywhere. Police are speaking with a person of interest, but the cause of the blast is unknown. One woman was killed and a man was seriously burned. Nancy Pelosi's message to voters might be turning them off to the Democratic Party.
In terms of the bonus that corporate America received versus the crumbs that they are giving to workers, this is like giving you a bowl of doggy do.
A new poll by the America First Action Super PAC shows 45% of Ohio voters trust our commander-in-chief and Republicans over the House Minority Leader and Democrats. The poll exclusively given to Breitbart News ahead of its public release. A community is begging for the return of several flags, paying tribute to fallen heroes.
Every flag has a name on it. Every name is someone that has a story, and they're not forgotten. They're loved.
The flags are... Thieves stealing the flags from the Field of Honor in Mansfield, Massachusetts, made up of 350 flags. Among those taken, one for the police department and another for fallen heroes. That theft is under investigation. Twitter's liberal CEO now apologizing for eating at Chick-fil-A. Jack Dorsey tweeting a screenshot of his use of the fast food restaurant's mobile app. Liberals, though, shaming him for spending money at Chick-fil-A because of the owner's religious views on gay marriage. Dorsey later responding, quote, "You're right, completely forgot about their background." Let's look at your headlines. I will send it back to you.
The food there is delicious. I love Chick-fil-A.
The
There's one
waffle
across
fries.
the street.
It is so good.
No one goes there anymore. The line's too long.
That's not
why
true.
you use the mobile app. That's why
Wait,
Jack
that
Dorsey
doesn't make sense.
Right,
Everyone goes there. That's why the lines are long.
Meanwhile, there were long lines out at the Belmont Stakes. Janice was there. She saw the horse win.
Janice, your horse.
The horse won. We have Saul Cumin on in the 8 o'clock hour, by the way, part owner of Justify. We're going to talk about it. First of all, I want to talk about how hot it is across the southern and central U.S. That's going to be a story today, as well as this frontal boundary bringing tons of rain across the mid-Mississippi Valley, the Ohio Valley, parts of the mid-Atlantic, areas that have seen a lot of rain over the last several weeks. So flooding is going to be a potential here. We'll be watching that region. Here's your forecast today. Stormy weather across the central U.S., warm across the south, rain across the mid-Atlantic, and we are also watching Hurricane Bud that could affect the Baja of California later this week. The horse won. Triple Crown. It happened at Belmont this weekend.
Janice, we need to buy a horse.
And she was there at the Kentucky
I
Derby
heard
when it won the first flag.
80,000?
It was incredible. And the horses.
What's 80,000?
Unbelievable.
80,000 people are there.
Oh,
okay.
No,
Should've
more,
probably
right.
said that.
$80,000?
It's more than that. Right.
All right.
All right. Thank you, Janice.
You're welcome.
Coming up.
Robert De Niro, we all watching the Tonys last night, taking the stage to bash the president, of course, once again. Listen.
I'm going to say one thing. Trump.
Will the Hollywood left condemn those words? We're going to debate it coming up next.
All right, he just keeps getting lower and lower. I'm not kidding. Robert De Niro, probably a good actor, using last night's platform at the Tony Awards to leave the prompter to say this about the president.
I'm going to say one thing. Trump. It's no longer down with Trump, it's Trump.
Good job. Another reason not to watch Meet the Parents or Meet the Parents 2. Here to weigh in is our panel, Fox News contributor Lisa Booth, who I've met in person, and Democratic strategist Antoine Seawright, who I've yet to meet in person.
I'm surprised you still have me back.
I know, it's unbelievable. Antoine, real quick, is this over the top even for you?
I probably wouldn't use the choice of Sunday school words that he used last night. However, I do think he speaks to the frustration, anger of a lot of people in this country on the left and the right. But if you are if you are surprised or pissed off about the language he used, then you have to look at the President of the United States and some of the language he's used, calling NFL players SOBs, S-hole countries, rapists and thugs for Mexicans. I mean, this type of language is accepted in Trump's America.
Well, that's true. Some stuff was behind closed doors, not at the Tonys. Lisa, what about the tone? Does this show that Robert De Niro has a limited vocabulary if you don't give him a script?
Absolutely. Look, it just shows how feckless the resistance movement is. They offer no solutions. They offer no substance. And so what they do is resort to using the F-bomb and the C word, like what we saw with Samantha Bee. So I think it's really pathetic. And all I think it really does is embolden President Trump and bring more people into his camp.
Yeah, it doesn't. It keeps the people in both camps, but the moderates don't. Hey, I want to get to another topic. Bill Maher on HBO said this about how much he hates the president. He actually wants the economy to tank so the president does not get another 4 years.
And I feel like the bottom has to fall out at some point. And by the way, I'm hoping for it, because I think one way you get rid of Trump is a crashing economy. Yeah. So please bring on the recession. Yeah. Sorry if that hurts people, but it's either root for a recession or you lose your democracy.
All right, Antoine, weigh in. You rooting for a recession?
Absolutely not. No one wants a recession, but I think what Bill was speaking to is the arrogance of this president on the economy and how he's bragged about essentially because he's president, the economy has happened the way it's had success as it has. And we all know that's not true. We all know that during the Great Recession, we lost almost 9 million jobs. We know there's been 92 consecutive months of record job growth, and that's because of President Obama.
20 seconds. Okay, so you think President Obama deserves credit for the economy, but you think it was wrong for Bill Maher to say
economy,
that?
Yes.
20 seconds, real quick, Lisa Booth, weigh in.
I think it's really sad that the left would rather see America fail than President Trump succeed. And I think that demonstrates just the vitriol and the hatred from the left. You look at the Great Recession, millions of jobs lost, trillions of dollars in household income and wealth gone. And that's what the left wants, just so President Trump doesn't have the victory or get reaelected. It's sad.
Right. No one gave Bush 41 credit for setting the table for Bill Clinton's surge. And no one gave Bill Clinton this credit.
Well, you have the tax reform law, you have decreased regulation, you have a lot happening under the Trump economy, Antoine.
All right, guys. Thanks so much, guys. I'm going to have to let you go. Straight ahead, we go. Thank you, guys. Meanwhile, stay straight ahead. 5 years and $15 million later, veterans and Gold Star families have a place to go. You'll learn about it next. All right, after 5 years and $15 million raised, JT's Camp Grom has finally opened in Virginia Beach.
The brand new camp caters toward wounded veterans, Gold Star families, and children with disabilities.
Carly Shimkus got an exclusive look ahead at the grand opening and joins us live.
This was so much fun, and what a good and unique cause. This incredible 70-acre facility was made possible by the Virginia Gentleman Foundation. It's the spirit of the people who built it and the determination of those who will use it that make this camp so special.
What they've created here in Camp Grom is an opportunity for individuals who have suffered similar catastrophic losses, who can come together and say, hey, we're the same.
This camp is for veterans, Gold Star families, and kids. How did you come up with that idea?
We wanted to provide those families somewhere to go where they could have a family experience together so that a wounded veteran could go somewhere and actually interact with his family and not sit on the sidelines.
Tell me about your son.
He was one of our 3 that chose to join the Marine Corps. Keelan was a very special young man. I can recall the first time as an active duty family that just suffered the traumatic loss of our oldest son. I just remember how we're going to create a new normalcy for our family. And we were like fish out of water. No one else was like us. And so this camp is going to be a way for everyone to come together and know that they have the love and the support that they need to move forward.
This is the first time that you're going to see your daughters able to play together in one facility.
Yes.
How do you think that's going to make you feel as a mom?
It makes me want to cry right now just thinking about it. They don't get to do a lot of things like this together. Those types of things are amazing for parents with a special needs child. It's amazing.
What are you most excited about the camp?
I'm excited about the Lazy River.
I'd like to go to camp.
Are you ready to do this?
I don't know how to answer that.
Let's get going.
I'm a total natural, right, guys? Wait, this is harder. This is harder than it looks. Oh,
There you go.
The climb up was a little bit easier than the descent down. I don't know why, but it was fun. What would you say to somebody who's going through their own personal struggle?
You're not alone. I've had my dark times. I was hit 8 times between my body armor and body, taken a round to the face, 2 rounds to the arm, and that started a whole new journey. It is a natural tendency to isolate ourselves in those moments when we are struggling the most. You don't have to do it alone. Even just taking that first step to be at a place like this and meet other people who also want to have fun and drive forward and overcome, that's all you need.
We can forget about the pain and the loss for just a brief moment and know that this was all done in their honor.
Well, the camp celebrated its grand opening yesterday, but the Virginia Gentleman Foundation already has plans to expand, and they're also hoping to raise money for people who can't afford to attend. If you would like to donate, you can go to vagentleman.com or head on over to campgrom.org. I would call that money well spent.
No kidding. What a beautiful facility. And that rock wall looked challenging.
Yeah. I learned that I was not good at climbing a rock wall. Also very embarrassing because I was surrounded by veterans that are very athletic, and then I'm hanging off the wall. That's okay. It was all good fun.
Virginia Beach is awesome, and it's the place where more military is concentrated than anybody else in the country.
That's right, and that's why the camp is so important. It's going to help so many people.
And it's year-round.
Yes,
all right.
that's right.
Carly, thank you very much.
Everyone go and donate to that. Campgrom.org.
Meanwhile, the countdown is on to the big summit. Chris Wallace is going to join us live from Singapore, other side of this timeout.